Hey folks, Baba here again. Hi, good to see you. How are you doing today? I'm doing okay. Today is Friday, and I think I made the last video on Monday, and I've been here alone at home, just myself, Minnie, and Metta, our cat and dog, and it's been a lovely week, kind of relaxing a lot, going out a lot, taking walks with Metta, playing with her. Minnie is, of course, she's a cat. She's much easier, cats to take care of. But has been a lovely week here. And finally, the summer has properly arrived, which is just crazy because it's already turning to the end of May. And, Slovenia, where we live at the moment, it's so far down south in Europe that on the previous springs, the proper warm weather has already arrived in early March, so good couple of months earlier. But this winter and this spring was unusually cold. Well, for us anyway. This is our third year here. Anyway, um, I received a lovely email from somebody called CM. I've changed the name there. So somebody called CM, I'm just gonna use his initials because I'm gonna read her or his email. And I've taken some, personal bits out from this email. So I kind of edited it a little bit. But here's CM's email. This is about the problem of bodhicitta. Let's put it this way. So I'm going to read his or her letter and then give my commentary to it. Okay. Greetings, Baba. Greetings, CM. I hope you're well. I've been watching your YouTube videos for over a year now, and I'm liking the new branding and website. What he's referring to with new branding and website is that we changed our Sangha's name from Amrita Mandala to Open Heart, back to Open Heart, what it was in the beginning. And we did that exactly for the purpose of approachability. I want to thank you for your efforts in spreading Dharma. Your pragmatic approach is refreshing, to say the least. You are quietly, unassumingly bringing the Dharma not only into the 21st century, not only into the West, but into the United States, which, let's face it, it's going to be a challenge. The Dharma will transform immensely. We need a strong, powerful foundation in spiritual pragmatism that still allows Buddha mind or God or spirit or whatever you want to call it to drive things forward. And you are literally building one version of that. Well, thank you very much. That is thoughtfully said. Yes, this is exactly what we are doing in Open Heart and have been for nearly 2 decades now. If it weren't for teachers like you, I seriously think I would leave Buddhism behind and focus on things like Kriya Yoga or Taoism. Well, I perfectly understand where this CM's perspective is coming from, and I understand it. I know you are busy, so I'll get straight to the point. I've started Nandro with a Chokchen teacher here in California, so I'm beginning to understand the technologies behind Vajrayana Buddhism. I'm relatively new, so I haven't made any lifelong decisions. One thing that is holding me back is the idea of the Bodhisattva vows. To put it bluntly, I am comfortable with refuge vows, and I'm comfortable with the idea of pursuing Buddhahood for the sake of both myself and all sentient kind. What I'm not comfortable with is taking what I called forever vows. Any vow that asks me to promise something forever is ridiculous in my somewhat ignorant position. Specifically, I don't like the idea of committing myself to serving all sentient kind, helping them escape samsara until samsara is empty. But the inside joke is that samsara will never be empty, right? Right? It's a bit of a cosmic joke, yet lamas of teachers of all ages seem to be pretty serious about it. So, to be able to continue taking the teachings of Vajrayana Dharma and work towards my own enlightenment, I am expected to take this vow. What if I say no? What if I agree to most of the other vows, but I say no to this one? Talk about dogmatic practices. But knowing that I am still in a state of ignorance, I'm seeking guidance from real life living lamas and teachers. I'm aware of a loophole that you discuss in one of your videos, but for now, I'm just asking for your guidance. It is seriously messing me up because, as you may guess, every non-draw practice has the Bodhisattva vows in them. Anyway, I could go on, but I'll leave it there. This is my problem with Buddhism in a nutshell. Thank you for your support and your teachings. Namaste and blessings, CM. Okay, so this dilemma is I think, quite common. I think it's quite common. Um, so CM here says that I've started Nandro. So Nandro is, for those of you who don't know what that word means, it means tantric preliminary practices in Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism. And these preliminary practices are quite extensive. There's 4 or 5 exercises there that are performed 100,000 times each. And it usually takes, just pulling out of from my hat, it usually takes several years especially for Western lay people to finish those preliminary practices. So CM says that he started Nandro with a Chokchen teacher in California, and he's beginning to understand the technologies behind Vajrayana Buddhism. And then he moves on to describing his issue or his problem with Bodhisattva vows, and especially from the perspective of what he calls forever vows. You know, CM, we don't need to vow or, how to say, promise anything that we are not comfortable with. So to myself, I spent my teen years just naturally contemplating death for many years before I properly met with Buddhist meditation and Dharma practice. So I spent many years, day in, day out, contemplating death, because when I was 14 years old, I believe, I read from a newspaper a interview with a priest, Christian priest, who talked about the importance of remembering one's mortality, one's death. So I read that newspaper when I was 14 years old, and 10 years later, my karmic conditions were ready for me to take up meditation practice properly, and I did. I started my practice with Zen Buddhism, and of course, from the first session onwards, like in all Mahayana and Vajrayana, there is this thing called Bodhisattva vows. And I remember during the first month when I was practicing Zen, first month, so it was very short process for me. But for the first month, when we had recitations there in the Zen practice sessions, and one of the recited texts was this four great Bodhisattva vows, I didn't speak them aloud because I realized that I needed to think about it a little bit before saying even such a vow. Of course, taking a vow, saying a vow and taking a vow are two different things. And usually, the way how I teach it is that, you know, you take it when you're ready to take it. You take it when you want to commit to it. You take it when it makes sense to you. But as long as it doesn't make sense to you, then it's okay to just say it, just recite it without thinking much about it. But the reason why I explained about my teenage years and my contemplation of death is because in Buddhism there are these general is general the word general preliminaries, including contemplation of sickness, old age, and death. And like this may be different in the presentations of Tibetan Vajrayana teachers and methods, but I know that they are there. These contemplation of sickness, old age, and death are there, but these are actually very, very, very important and very, very, very powerful. I could tell you actually a couple of examples of two cases, two people who I know who had practiced several decades of Vajrayana, Tibetan Vajrayana, including Mahamudra, Chokchen, all these highest teachings for several decades. Now we are talking about 4 or 5 decades. But then, after all that time, these two people who I know were met with, how should I say, adverse circumstances in life, illness. And this illness led them to, of course, contemplate their illness, but also the possibility of dying of the illness. And in both of these cases of these gentlemen, that was something that was missing for all these decades, that they hadn't really contemplated death, which will happen to all of us. Nobody is an exception. So it was interesting to see the process of these two gentlemen, because they had done all those higher practices, received all the highest instructions from the greatest lamas, but still they didn't get not that much benefit from their high practices. But then when they were forced to contemplate death, that really changed. Their energy, their whole demeanor, all their habit patterns were suddenly, like pulling the rug under the habit patterns. And the rug, of course, is that people believe that they have time for endless time available, that this life just keeps going on, and that sickness, old age, illness, and death will simply won't happen to me. So I think this is like a subconscious, some kind of subconscious habit that protects us. Maybe like a, I don't know, like a from in our genes or something, that we don't think about our deaths, but it will happen. So um, I think I just wanted to share this with you because I have felt immense benefit from remembering my death day in, day out, in everyday circumstances, just realizing it that whatever I'm experiencing will not last forever. Whether it is problematic situations or whether it is something that I feel are comfortable and pleasures in life, whatever, this won't last either. Nothing lasts forever except Buddha nature. so, uh, so this is one perspective into your dilemma, that maybe it would be good for you to look into this, contemplate old age, sickness, and death, and really kind of feel them in your body. Feel them in your body. Own sickness, old age, and death. Own it. That the thought of death, whenever that may happen, or illness, or old age, that they won't surprise you. That they won't surprise you. This is when these common preliminaries, you have, I would say, graduated them, when when death doesn't play tricks with your mind anymore. And I think that, well, I can speak from my own experience, that doing that contemplation for since I was 14 until 24, so like good 10 years, throughout my teenage years, it really made my heart mature, and it made all kinds of nonsense and bullshit from my mind fall away. So that when I was finally, when I took up my Buddhist meditation practice, and there were these Bodhisattva vows, it only took me a month to contemplate it and then commit to it. You know, within making that commitment. I also joined this called Jukai. It's called the 10 Precepts, including Bodhisattva vows. I joined this ceremony. But yeah, in my case, which happened later, but in my case, it took just a month. And here we come to, this is just my example. You have your path to go through and to discover, to explore, and everybody has their own paths. But and in the beginning of the path, we simply don't know. We come to Dharma because we don't know who we are, and we don't know our nature. And when we speak of what or who we are, this question is very profound. Often when I hear Dharma practitioners and teachers talk about this, who we are, I often feel like it's kind of a bit shallow, this discussion. And of course, we understand that who and what we really are, we are Buddhas. But even this phrase sounds it's so used up. What do you mean, Buddhas? Okay, then we start talking about clarity. We start talking about kindness, loving kindness, compassion. We start talking about peacefulness, all these basic qualities. And one problem with this discussion is that everybody can understand that how clarity of mind is beneficial in instead of having monkey mind and chaotic mind. Everybody, that's an obvious point. Same thing with loving kindness and love and compassion, being sweet and soft. Everybody can understand that that feels more natural and it feels better than having anxiety and fear and being very reactive and opinionated and being greedy and jealous. Everybody can understand that, and also that it everybody can understand and appreciate that it is far more natural to be at peace than to be in chaos or in conflict or war with things outside, with things inside. So it's very easy to make this case that our basic nature, uh, our basic nature, the Buddha within has these qualities and it's beneficial. But the thing is that here's one very important thing, that you have to have many awakening experiences, many so-called cessations. Cessation is a English translation for the Sanskrit term nirodha, which is a big thing. It's really, really, really important teaching, this of cessation, of nirodha, because in cessation, when our habits cease to exist for a moment, our delusions cease to exist for a moment, we can experience and recognize this Buddha nature of ours. So we can talk about, and we can talk about clarity and compassion and peacefulness all day long and all year long, like many do, and we can do all kinds of practices and exercises for years and decades on end. But if we don't recognize this basic nature of ours, with all that has all these basic qualities and characteristics, we will miss the whole point and we will not come to know ourselves. So something that is, you know, again, maybe I'll use myself as an example. I came to Dharma because I wanted to awaken. I wanted to become enlightened, just like Sakyamuni Buddha became enlightened. He became enlightened person. Call it enlightened master. Call it Mahasiddhahood, Buddhahood. I don't really care what to call it, but I wanted to know myself in a way, in a most profound way, in a really know my nature. But then it gets lost, because usually methods don't have techniques and practices that will enable the practitioners to know themselves. Just like I mentioned the examples of these two gentlemen who had spent 40, 50 years with highest practices, there was something fundamentally off in their practice. They received some benefits from the practice, but not. There was still so much stuff happening. And the reason why I'm talking about this recognition of Buddha nature and cessations, awakening experiences, is because, well, Bodhisattva vows and taking the vow beyond the limits of this life or any life, it's something that is felt in the heart, something that is heart related. But having said that, we also always need to connect the relative practices with the absolute nature. This is a very, very important connection to make, so that, when we have some exercise, in this case, Bodhisattva vows, or it might be any of the non-drop practices that you're doing, it might be any other practice, anybody of any tradition might be doing some exercise, some relative practice that needs to connect with our Buddha nature. That needs to provide us a recognition of our basic nature. And if this doesn't happen, that's a problem. That's a very big problem, I would say. Exactly what happened to me, what happens to a lot of people. I've received so many messages, emails, private messages throughout the time when I've been teaching, that people have gotten so disillusioned and frustrated with their Dharma practice because they are committed to doing all kinds of things, but this basic nature of theirs remains a total mystery. Like all these mantras and prayers and empowerments and vows and vows and pilgrimages and meeting famous lamas and so on and so on and so on. No connection. Total mystery, this nature of ours. So here's my practical advice to you, CM. Something that is really basic thing, the way how I teach, the way how I practice, this is a universal principle. So this is not only instruction that what I received from my teachers, masters, but this applies to everybody. This applies to everybody, even if you didn't receive the instruction. And most people don't receive this instruction. And that's why the relative practice and absolute nature remain separate. There's a gap, a canyon between them. So something extremely simple that will change your Dharma life, that will change your practice if you apply this. When you are doing your mantras, your practices, your prayers, including Bodhisattva vows, take breaks. When you chant the Bodhisattva vows, for example, stop the chant for 1 or 2 minutes after you chant them and simply feel the Bodhisattva vows. Feel the blessing. Feel the energetic charge coming from these Bodhisattva vows. Feel it. You first chant the Bodhisattva vows or whatever prayer aspiration it might be. So don't keep chanting it like this from one prayer to the next. Put breaks in between those prayers and simply feel the energy of Bodhisattva vows. Feel and see what they tell you. See how the blessings from those incredibly powerful, great vows, how they reveal your nature. Reveal that clarity, sobriety of the head, softness, lovingness, compassion of the heart, and groundedness, peacefulness of the body. So put these little 1 or 2 minute breaks in between your practices. This is something that I have spoken a lot throughout the years in blog posts, in my retreat teachings, in my YouTube videos. And this is a big missing instruction in all of Mahayana and Vajrayana Buddhism, all traditions. People just hurry through whatever prayers they might be saying. Oh my God, people might be hurrying through, chanting the names of the lineage masters, starting with Buddha Shakyamuni and going through 100 generations of names of masters up until today. And then they just keep chanting different sutras and tantras and prayers and so on. It's like it is really sad, you know. It is really sad that this basic instruction of stopping for a moment and feeling the blessings of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, lineage masters, and the blessings of one's own nature. Complete ignorance regarding this. And I have seen this happen in all the sanghas I've ever visited, that I've joined for teachings, that I've joined on retreats, and nobody speaks about this. The blessings are there. Oh my God. Actual Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and countless Mahasiddhas, masters, enlightened masters, blessing the Sangha, but people are ignorant. They don't know that it's there, they're there, because nobody points it out, nobody mentions it. That is just incredibly sad. Again, and I say this with love and care, genuine care, this needs to change in the world of Dharma. Because, like I said, we need to use the practices in a way that it makes the relative and absolute connect. If we are only just performing, it's like we are running away from the absolute, running away from our true nature, which is embodied by these Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and Mahasiddhas. Just constantly running away. It is the dumbest mistake, really stupid, basic mistake. And I never, it just doesn't stop to shock me how things can get this bad, how the instructions can be, even the most basic fundamental instructions, how they can disappear. But they have. So coming back to CM, the reason why I'm giving this little instruction to you to take those little breaks in between your mantras, prayers, bodhisattva vows, and feel. Let it connect with your heart. Let it connect with your head. Let it connect with your whole body, your whole being. Let it connect. And see, when you practice like this, see what happens. Okay? And I think that it might be in a week, it might take a month, 6 months, year, but at some point it will click in your mind. Oh, now I get it. Now I understand the forever vows. It will suddenly make sense to you. So I'm not gonna give you like a logical answer, but an experiential one. So you may use this instruction, this little advice that I've given here, and if it is helpful, if you use it and you find it helpful, get back to me, however long it takes for that click to happen, for that click to come. So I would love to hear how it worked for you. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. Again, went 35 minutes. Well, can't help it. Um, so thank you very much, everybody, for leaving nice comments, for sending me emails. My email address is amrita.baba@hotmail.com. You are welcome to send me questions, whatever you might be thinking about related to Dharma practice. And you're also welcome to leave comments below. Always remember to press like. Always, it would be helpful for my work if you press like, start following my channel, and also share my videos in social media. Look who woke up from the nap, ready for another session of playing outside. So that would be really helpful if you can do that, those things. And thank you for listening again, and see you in the next one. Bless you, and bless all beings.